Did you know that in the 17th century, Sweden was one of the most powerful nations in Europe? But then, something happened that changed the course of history. Sweden went from being a superpower to a forgotten force. Today, we'll explore how this incredible rise and fall happened, and uncover shocking truths, including the mysterious death of King Charles XII. Stay tuned to find out what led to Sweden's downfall. But that's just the beginning. The secret you'll learn will change everything you thought you knew. In the 17th century, Sweden was a military powerhouse, controlling vast territories in Europe. With its powerful army, Sweden was a dominant force in the Baltic and beyond. Kings like Gustavus Adolphus were renowned for their military strategies, leading Sweden to victory after victory. But how did this superpower fall from grace? What happened to this once unstoppable force? As we explore Sweden's rise to power, we'll uncover the key events and figures that led to its downfall, including the death of one of its greatest kings, Charles XII. The story of Sweden's transformation from empire to decline is full of twists and turns, and it begins here. But knowing this, you're going to want to keep watching. The death of King Charles XII was a turning point for Sweden. He was one of the most talented military leaders of his time, but his aggressive campaigns took a toll on Sweden. His death, under mysterious circumstances, left Sweden vulnerable. The question remains, was it an accident or a political assassination? Regardless of how he died, his passing created a vacuum of power that Sweden could not fill. Without his leadership, the country struggled to defend its empire, and its military strategies started to fail. The once great nation began to lose its grip on the territories it once controlled. But the deeper we go, the more intriguing it becomes. After Charles XII's death, Sweden faced immense challenges. The country, once feared by its neighbors, was now vulnerable. Neighboring countries like Russia and Denmark began to make territorial claims. Sweden's military lost its edge, and its once strong alliances began to crumble. However, Sweden wasn't finished yet. Despite its troubles, the country still had a fighting chance. Some believed that the Swedish Empire could rise again. What would happen next? Could Sweden recover from its devastating losses, or was this the beginning of the end? But while it seems hopeless, there's a twist that changes everything. Sweden's decline was not sudden. It was a series of failures and missed opportunities. With the loss of King Charles XII, Sweden faced internal turmoil. Its once powerful military began to crumble, unable to defend its vast territories. Neighboring countries like Russia and Denmark saw Sweden as weak and began encroaching on its lands. The once fearsome Swedish army was now struggling to maintain control. As these pressures mounted, Sweden's grip on its empire loosened. Despite desperate attempts to turn the tide, the question remained: could Sweden recover its former glory, or was the empire doomed? The story is far from over. Sometimes, when history gets too serious, it's good to lighten things up. Can you imagine the royal advisors scrambling around, trying to figure out what went wrong while the empire is literally falling apart? Maybe someone suggested a new coat of arms or a flashy new uniform for the soldiers, because that will totally fix everything. But even in the darkest times, people find ways to inject humor into dire situations. Let's pause and remember that no matter how grand the fall, it always comes with a touch of absurdity. But enough jokes. Let's get back to the serious part of the story. After the brief comedic relief, it's time to focus on the hard truth. Sweden was losing. The once feared military machine could not stop the onslaught of foreign powers. Denmark, Russia, and Poland chipped away at Sweden's territory. Sweden's navy, once a symbol of strength, was now unable to defend the Baltic. The Swedish king, no longer a strong figure like Charles XII, failed to unite the country. The power vacuum left Sweden vulnerable, and in just a few decades, Sweden went from one of the most powerful nations to a shell of its former self. The stage is set, but there's more to uncover. Stay tuned. As Sweden struggled to hold on to its power, something strange began to happen. Despite the mounting pressure from surrounding countries, some military leaders believed Sweden could recover. They formulated plans to reclaim lost territories, but there was a catch. There were rumors of a secret weapon. Could Sweden have a hidden advantage that no one knew about? These rumors created a wave of hope among the people and military leaders alike. Could this secret weapon turn the tide, or was it just a desperate fantasy? The mystery only deepened as whispers grew louder, and then something happened that would change everything. The mystery surrounding Sweden's so-called secret weapon was finally revealed, and it was not what anyone expected. The secret weapon was not an advanced weapon or military technology, but rather a shift in Sweden's military strategy. Desperate to regain power, Sweden began to focus on unconventional warfare, relying on spies, sabotage, and guerrilla tactics. This shift marked a turning point, with Sweden using surprise and cunning rather than sheer force. Though it wasn't enough to turn the tides entirely, it sparked new hope among the Swedish military. Could this unconventional strategy lead to a Swedish revival, or was it too little too late? But after all these surprises, there's still more to come. In the midst of all this military action and covert operations, one has to wonder, could Sweden have just hired a few too many spies? Picture a Swedish general holding a meeting with his spies, only to find out they were all secretly working for different countries. Perhaps they were playing a game of who can betray Sweden the most, and winning. Despite the tension and chaos of war, there's always room for a little bit of dark humor in the most unexpected places. In the end, it's a reminder that even in the most serious times, people can't resist some absurdity. But now, let's return to the real stakes at play here. Just when it seemed like Sweden was on the brink of fading into history, a new twist emerged. Amid the military struggles and shifting alliances, Sweden managed to secure a crucial, unexpected victory. This victory wasn't through sheer military might, but through diplomatic maneuvering. Sweden, in a final act of desperation, managed to form a surprising alliance with some of its former enemies. This alliance provided Sweden with much-needed resources and a renewed sense of hope. But was this alliance enough to turn the tide, or was it simply a temporary fix for an empire in decline? But as the alliance grows stronger, an even greater challenge looms ahead. With the new alliance in place, Sweden's military power seemed to be on the rise once again. But as time went on, cracks began to appear. The fragile alliance was held together by desperation, and it became clear that external threats were closing in. The hope of a revival seemed ever so close, yet something felt off. The tension between the allies started to grow, and Sweden faced the risk of being torn apart from within. Would this alliance prove to be Sweden's salvation, or was it just a matter of time before the final collapse? The answer would come soon. The stage is set, and the final act is about to unfold. As the situation in Sweden grows more dire, the pressure builds. The alliance, once seen as a beacon of hope, is now on the brink of collapse. Sweden's last chance for survival lies in a single, decisive battle. The forces of Sweden and its allies must face their enemies head-on, but cracks in their unity have already begun to show. With tensions running high and trust at an all-time low, the outcome of this final battle is uncertain. Will Sweden rise from the ashes of its fallen empire, or will it be swallowed by its enemies, unable to recover from the strain? The answer is just within reach, and the stakes could not be higher. Amidst all the tension, let's take a moment to lighten the mood. Imagine a Swedish soldier on the front lines, frantically checking his weapon, while his comrades discuss the weather or the best way to brew coffee in the middle of a war zone. It's always the little things that stand out in the chaos of battle. And then, just as the general shouts his orders, one soldier accidentally trips over a rock, sending everyone into fits of laughter. In the midst of the madness, sometimes the absurdity of the situation shines through, a quick breather before the storm, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, humor finds a way to sneak through. Now, back to the battle at hand. The final chapter begins. The time has come for the final battle. The forces of Sweden and its allies are gathered, ready to face their enemies in what will be the ultimate test of strength. The battlefield is set, and the soldiers are poised for action, their nerves steeled by the weight of history. But even as the battle begins, something feels different. The tension between the allies has reached a breaking point, and it's unclear whether they will stand united or crumble under the pressure. This is the moment that will decide Sweden's fate. Will they rise from the ashes of their former empire, or will they fall into obscurity, swallowed by the forces that seek to destroy them? The clash of armies is imminent, and the stakes have never been higher. And now, the final truth will be revealed. The moment that changes everything In the end, Sweden's efforts to survive were not enough. The final battle, though fiercely fought, ended in defeat. The alliance that had once held so much promise crumbled under the weight of internal conflict and external pressure. Sweden's last-ditch attempt to reclaim its former glory was in vain. The empire that had once ruled over vast territories was now reduced to a shadow of its former self. The tragic fall of Sweden was complete. The dream of revival was shattered, and the kingdom, once mighty, was left to fade into history. This was the true end of an empire, and its story remains a somber reminder of the fragility of power.